free. Plus, you'll get a free vacation voucher. Call now, 1-800-653-3027. That's 1-800-653-3027.
Violent rhetoric where penny this week. And to peacefully use and discuss and intertwine what used to be very ideals, a culmination of ideas that might better this place, better this country, better human beings, might be the good idea. It might be that we differ, but there are things about your thought form and my thought form that we can meet in the middle on stuff. That's not the Giuliani America at all. The Giuliani America is the John McCain America, is the Ronald Reagan America, is the Ron Paul America. Or God is just would have continued our decision not to do it. We'll be.
Back on the beat with Dick Kay.
From the Chicago Food Depository, he is Paul Morello, who is the communications director at the Greater Chicago Food Depository.
You hearing everything okay on your end?
Yeah, it sounds pretty solid.
So we're on pace right now to serve about 5.5 million individuals at food pantries just in Cook County.
We got Dave in Sacramento with the
Back on the
Jeb
beat
Bush
with Dick
comment.
Kay. Saturdays from 1 to 4 p.m. is sponsored by Coaching Financial Concepts, helping you win the game. CoachFinancial.com.
This is
much time do we have?
WCPT's Art of the City. We let you know what's happening in the theater, music, and visual arts. Coming up on Saturday, February 28th, from 7 to 10 p.m. at Intuit, the Center for Intuitive and Outsider Art at 756 North Milwaukee, is the 2015 release of Merge Visible Magazine and Shelter Listening Party. In 2014, photographer-painter Jesse Green decided to take matters into his own hands and publish his own magazine for the masses to enjoy. Comprised of published and unpublished images, Merge Visible will be the first of many publications featuring Jesse Green's work. There will also be a photo installation of new and unseen images shot by Jesse Green and Release. Shelter is an American electronic music duo consisting of Ari Newberger and Alexis Salgado from Evanston. Shelter draws influence from lo-fi electro, traditional Chicago deep house elements, chop and screw hip-hop with a blend of ambient and soulful melodies. For more information, go to art.org.
Thanks, Skinny.
Today on Save on Taxes. We ask 100 people what costs less than filing your taxes with IRS Free File.
Car seat.
No! Erica, what do you think costs less than filing your taxes with IRS Free File?
A pair of shoes.
Wrong again. The correct answer is nothing. Costs less than filing your federal taxes with IRS Free File because it's absolutely free. That's right. With IRS Free File, you get brand name software, online tax prep, and e-filing for free. The software helps you pick the right forms, find tax credits, and does the math for you. Free File even helps with the new healthcare provisions, and it's all for free.
So, did we win anything?
Everybody wins. freefile.irs.gov. It's fast, it's safe, it's free.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
Yeah, I've often heard the show described as afternoon delight. I'm not going to lie. I get a lot of tweets saying that. By the way, at Hal Sparks is the Twitter feed if you want to get in on today's discussion and you don't have time or the ability to pick up a phone where you are. The hashtag is HSRPM. And you can also join our chat on YouTube. If anybody in the YouTube chat wants to share that on their feed as well, we can sort of get that out onto the Twitter sphere if you want to join us in there. And, of course, you can always call us, 773-763-926. We already have a caller on the line, do we not, Dennis?
Yeah, it looks like we got Dave in Sacramento. He's
cool.
Kind of a regular caller here on the show.
All right. Well, pop in here, Dave, and then I'm going to play a clip from Donald used to go to my high school, Rumsfeld. Okay.
How you doing?
Good. Go ahead.
Good. Rick, what is it, Giuliani?
Rudy Giuliani, yeah.
Everybody forgot his name already. The fact of the matter is, I'm getting sick of him. I'm getting sick of the Republicans. What Obama, now I love Obama. I totally love what he did so far in 8 years. Mm-hmm. Okay. I agree with some of the things that he did, some of the things that he didn't do. Okay, I disagree. But what he did in 8 years is more than what 25 years of all the presidents combined couldn't do.
Right.
So with all these other people that are complaining about what he's done in his term, and compared to what Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, Jimmy Carter, don't ask, don't tell with Clinton, and put all that other crap on the gay militaries and all that.
Mm-hmm.
He's done it all. Mm-hmm. And people, I will never, ever, ever don't expect anybody to vote for a Republican.
Right.
And for that matter, the way I see it is that you'd be stupid if you want a Republican back in there, so that way they can go back to war. Because they're a bunch of warmongers.
Well, yeah, I'm going to play you a clip from John McCain in just a minute that maps out his solutions for what's going on in the Middle East right now. And this idea that they have one version of strength, and that's sending other people's kids into war zones unprepared. That's the Republican methodology for displays of manhood. This is how we will show that America is tough, by slapdash throwing our military into a situation without any planning other than the project for a new American century that eventually we want to take Iran. So we've got this idea that the Middle East is dominoes and we'll just do it.
Now they should be They should be on meds. They should be all on meds. They're insane. They're totally on meds. All these Republicans that want to go back to war and put our kids in life in danger. Why don't the Republicans go to war? Let them send them over there.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's they always will fight that that pesky old draft. Rudy Giuliani himself, his dad and his uncles all had deferments to get out of World War II, the quote unquote greatest generation. We almost think that nobody didn't go in World War II, right? That was the idea is that everybody went to World War II. Some people tried to get out of Vietnam and Korea, but nobody tried to get out of World War II. I mean, I saw Captain America. 10-year-olds wanted to sign up, right? But apparently not in Giuliani's family. And then Giuliani himself got deferments as well. So
I think Jeff and I think Jeb Bush should put Sarah Palin as his co-running mate, so that way he can lose just like he did with John McCain. Put Sarah Palin next to Jeb Bush, so that way make it easier for us to win. As far as I'm concerned,
look at Huckabee for that one, because they're going to have to stack Jeb. They're going to have to stack Jeb. Yeah, but they're going to have to stack him with an evangelical to pull that vote, because he's not that type.
Hey, Hal, let me put it this way. I'll end it with this.
Sure.
Let me put it this way. If you want, like I said, if you want to put Huckabee running for president as the biggest joke of them all, if you want to believe in a fairy tale or believe in a zombie, 3 days that Christ rose from the dead and believe in a zombie, go right ahead and believe in a zombie. That's okay. That's what they call zombies when when they raise them from the dead. That's okay. Or cannibalism. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not trying to mock religious people. I'm just saying that there is some good people that are tolerant against gay people, against other religion. You know what I'm saying? They're tolerant. But when you get somebody like a Huckabee, are you thinking that he's just looking just to get a reality show or trying to get a book signing or somebody to sign him for a television show? Because the guy's not going to win. Just put it out there.
Well, that's the
all right, thanks, Al.
Absolutely. That's the Ron Paul methodology, is run for president every time because it helps you sell books and grow kind of a political base. P.S. Well, here's how much Ron Paul loves America. He was talking at a group called the Mises organization, Mises.com or something now, .org probably. The irony that These are these super free market people, but they take advantage of the not-for-profit laws. This is a speech he made just recently.
I would like to start off by talking about the subject, and the subject, of course, is secession and nullification, the breaking up of government. And the good news is it's going to happen. Amen. It's happening.
Woo! Amen! Did you hear that big amen in the background? That's good stuff. Listen, it gets better.
And it's not going to be because there will be enough people in the U.S. Congress to legislate it. It won't happen. It'll be de facto. You'll have a gold standard when the paper standard fails, and we're getting awfully close to that. And people will have to resort to taking care of themselves. So when conditions break down, there's going to be an alternative. And I think that...
So you notice how he had he knew that was an applause line when he said, "That's gonna happen." And those guys were yelling, "Amen! I can't wait for this place to fail." That he basically says, but they had this idea, I think a lot of them, that there's going to be this kind of new government takeover, that they're going to move in there and do this reclamation of the American ideal that they once had. And then he goes on to say that, nobody's ever going to vote for that. That's not going to happen legislatively. It's just going to fall apart. And for, I guess, a couple of years, maybe 18 months, maybe a couple of decades, we're all just going to live in log cabins while the lights are out until somebody can take over again. And that'll be us. This will be our alternative. I don't know about you, but one of the I've always understood that one of the greatest things about this country, beyond the rights and freedoms and equality that we afford everyone, is that we have a peaceful exchange of power, and we use the democratic process and a coming together to try to forge better ideas. That in making an idea, we can listen to alternate views, we can all sit around and go and throw in ideas and eventually come to a better system. It doesn't always work that way. Some parts of our government get certainly overrun ideas or get hijacked for decades and have to be dug out. But the concept is right. The concept is that we all get together and try to make this better together. That Ron Paul has given up on that, and so has this entire swath of humanity that he appeals to, and in many ways the same people that Rudy Giuliani was talking to. The hell with America, it's already gone. Look, we've got a black president, and these Ferguson people just don't know, how good they got it, who cares if all the money's going to 1% of the country and the other 99%. We're becoming sort of an economy like unto Mexico had and has that makes it a really rough place to live in that regard. And their response is, I've only got 2 minutes left in this clip from Rumsfeld, the guy who walked the same halls I went to late for algebra. And Johnny Million as well, who's not with us today, but understands what I mean when I talk about this. That Rumsfeld and McCain are still, well, here, let me play the McCain thing. This will give you an idea. We got a couple minutes left. This is John McCain's idea of how to solve what's going on in Syria with ISIL and Iran. Okay, and tell me if this is his new plan.
And you're the commander-in-chief, and your mission is to defeat, destroy ISIS. Forget about degrading, destroying ISIS. Mm-hmm. What do you do?
You developed a strategy, and elements of that strategy are American boots on the ground and not the 82nd Airborne. The president keeps setting up these straw men saying we want to send in masses of American troops. We don't. But we need to have American forward air controllers, special forces, many other. I'm talking about 10,000 in Iraq. Then we need to say that our objective is to eliminate Bashar Assad as well as ISIS in Syria, and we recruit other Arab nations with Americans, but not too many, to fight against ISIS and Bashar Assad in Syria, and coordinate those movements with air power guided by forward air controllers. And Joe,
okay, I'll finish some of what he's saying on the other side of the break, but does this not sound like more of the same? Does this not sound like more of, we'll be in there a couple weeks. It'll cost us about $8 billion, and we'll topple Bashar Assad, and there'll be no drift. No known unknowns. Good grief. Is there a new... Okay, and then I'm going to tell you what part of the president's plan towards Russia hit another milestone in effectiveness this week. Because he doesn't love America, because he won't randomly send troops. Holy smokes. We'll be back after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. You can Twitter me at Hal Sparks on Twitter.
Tune in this Sunday for Tavis Smiley on WCPT AM and FM.
Coming up on the next Tavis Smiley Show from PRI, Marion Wright Edelman of the Children's Defense Fund explores solutions to ending child poverty in America. Demographer William Fry looks at dramatic shifts in the nation's racial makeup. And singer John Oates of Hall & Oates talks about his new TV special, Another Good Road, on the next Tavis Smiley Show from PRI.
The Tavis Smiley Show, Sundays at 3 on Chicago's Progressive Talk.
For almost 10 years, I've been a lineman for the power company. It's hard work up here on the wires, long, dangerous hours, and at times like this, when storms roll through, I really appreciate how much people rely on me. I know that service is important. That's why I also serve in the Coast Guard Reserve. In the Coast Guard Reserve, our crews respond to rising floodwaters in the Midwest, oil spills in the Gulf of Mexico, and disasters like the Haiti earthquake. The Coast Guard Reserve is a challenge I gladly take on, because my country needs me. It has a lot in common with my full-time career, and just like other first responders, firemen, police officers, and EMTs, we do our best work when things are their worst. I have no doubt I was born for this.
If you were born ready to give more to your country, the Coast Guard Reserve is ready for you. Learn more at gocoastguard.com.
Sponsored by the United States Coast Guard in cooperation with the Illinois Broadcasters Association and this station.
These days, going to the dentist can be practically painless.
Gee, that didn't hurt a bit.
Until they hand you the bill.
Ow!
Because if you don't have dental insurance, you could be spending a lot of money. Even just a simple cleaning can cost over $100. And other procedures like crowns and root canals can cost you hundreds.
By the way, Dennis,
more.
I noticed the Top Gun music.
For less than
well
$1 a day. Real dental
man,
insurance
we'll
that can cover over 300 procedures. Everything from cleanings and fillings to crowns and dentures.
Okay. Oh, great.
To have a free information kit mailed
I'll finish the
directly
McCain
to
thing, and then I'll take a couple of them, and then I'm going to play the Rumsfeld stuff. It's Rumsfeld stuff's like 4 minutes long, but I'm going to
for one of these insurance policies,
talk
even
through
if
it,
you're
so it might take
retired or on
longer.
Medicare.
So it might be the
You can
last
see
whole
any
segment
dentist you choose and never pay a deductible.
of this hour.
This is the pain-free way to get coverage for less than $1 a day. For your free information kit with all the details, call 1-800-719-2484. 1-800-719-2484.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
I agree, EO.
Your resume
Edge of
isn't
Tomorrow
quite
is
what
awesome.
we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed.
You know
by
why
how you
Edge
carry
of Tomorrow is a better movie than Top Gun?
Should we talk about the job?
Because Top
What?
Gun
The
was
job?
about
Oh,
this
sorry.
bullshit
I
idea
have no
of
way of recruiting or
natural
even meeting
talent.
you. This interview
that he just got kind of a magic about him, so he can kind of be slapdash with what he's doing.
There's a huge pool of talent your
And it's
company's
not that he has
missing
to
out on.
build
Meet the
skill, he
grads
just
of
has
life.
to
Who
remember
are
it.
they? Talent worth knowing about.
And
Young adults
it's
of
very
unique
Matrix,
determination
it's just very
and
lazy.
An ideal fit for your
Whereas
company
Edge of
in an entry-level
Tomorrow
position,
was the
internship, or
torturous
even
act
mentorship.
of trying
They
to
might
get
not
it
have
right.
every qualification
And so
you
he had to
typically look
try
for, but
again
they're
and
exactly
again
who
and
your
again.
company
It's
needs.
about effort, and I really like that aspect of that movie.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
So, welcome back to the world of the America haters, I guess. And we've got some calls on the line, and I will get to you guys in a second. I just want to play the rest of that McCain clip. So, in case you missed where he was going, he wants 10,000 troops on the ground in Iraq. He's like, we don't want a lot. We just want 10,000 on the ground in Iraq, forward operating guys and special forces. And we want those in there. And then we want some on the ground, not too many. Didn't give a number there because he can't. Because you can't have a senator who used to run for president on the news saying to another Middle Eastern regime, we want to put 50,000 troops in your country. But that's what he's talking about. You're not going to drop 10,000 soldiers in a foreign country with a functioning government that we are, at conflict, while something like somewhere between 60 and 80 variant militia groups and tribes are fighting with and against this dude, and you don't quite know who your friends are. But keep in mind, McCain knows the good ones. He's looked into their heart. He went down there with a magnifying glass, and he knows who the good guys are. But this is the rest of his nonsense. Hold on.
You know as well as I do, air power alone does not win conflicts. They're a key element, but they don't win. And that's why you're going to have to have these boots on the ground. And by the way, small things or not so small things like getting weapons directly to the Peshmerga, they're the only ones that are fighting. Stop this business of the Shiite militia, which are Iranian clients, having a lead role in Iraq. There are so many different...
Can I stop you there really quick?
This is here comes a moment of clarity with a little too much protection verbally from Joe Scarborough right now. But he makes a rough point for McCain's argument.
Sure. Sir. Yeah, just about Iran, because it seems to me if the Iranians, and I said this past week that I think Iran is a much graver threat, and a nuclear weapon in Iran is a much graver threat than even ISIS. But if it were not for the Iranians right now and their involvement in Iraq, would Baghdad not have already fallen?
Yes, is the answer, by the way.
I don't think so. I think that there are just too many people in Baghdad for them to have fallen. They may have been able to do some more damage. But do we want Iranian-sponsored Shiite militia, who, by the way, now are committing horrendous war crimes against Sunni, when we need the Sunni in Anbar province to join us again, as they did in the past, if we're going to defeat ISIS?
Yeah. Okay. Needless to say, John McCain is still fighting the same Iraq war and still under the impression that the surge was all us and functioned strictly on the fact that we put more troops in there and had nothing to do with us gaining the confidence of other warlords in that area who normally we would say were awful, and the consistently dirty politics and dirty pool of operating within these tribal relationships in places like Iraq and Syria and Jordan and Yemen and Qatar. And speaking of Qatar, we'll get to Donald Rumsfeld in just a minute. But I want to take some calls. Who do we have there, Dennis?
Let's go to Donald. He's an Illinois veteran. So.
Oh, right on. Cool.
Something to say here.
Hey, Donald. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Hal. How you doing?
I'm good.
I've heard some disturbing.
And you're the commander-in-chief.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I heard some disturbing news last night from Norman Goldman, who's listening to the radio, and he mentioned something about 57% of the American people are in favor of sending troops in there, getting us into a war. Really? I'm wondering if they're using the media to promote this sort of thing because of the fact I can't believe that 57% of the Americans are that stupid.
I don't buy it
to
either.
Get back
Right.
into a car.
I agree.
And not only that, there too, I was drafted at 66. And this business of getting us engaged into another war, I think the one percenters and the millionaires and billionaires better put their kids out there. I listen to Tom Hartman, and he always says that there should be an option that they have the ability to go to Peace Corps. No more deferments. You want these wars, the millionaires, the billionaires, and the one percenters, your kids are going to get sent up to the front lines with 11 Bravo MOS just like everybody else. It's not going to be anymore with this business of, as you're watching your kids come home, the middle class, in body bags, their kids are found behind the safe end of a broken bottle with stateside duties and everything else. No, they have to fight just like everybody else. Let them put some skin in the game. I'm so sick of this stuff with these people. And my fellow veterans, too, I'm angry with them, too.
I agree. I think, by the way, that that poll number is another example of an if-then. If there was another attack on the United States like 9/11 and you found out that it was related to what was going on in Syria, do you think we should go to war with Syria? 57% of the United States, absolutely. There is that number for that. But that's not the circumstance we're in. That's not the reality of the time, and it's not based on what the actual outcome will be. And I think you're right about the American people not being that stupid about it, or at least not that easily led back into this same activity again. Go ahead.
Well, and not only that, this business of toppling another government like Assad, we should be joining him in the fight against these people, not going against him. I mean, it didn't work very well in Iraq now, did it?
No, I actually don't believe that in many ways you improve the circumstance. Syria is another example where you had a relatively sectarian leader in the Middle East. His wife does not cover her head. There's education. There's other aspects of Syria that are just as awful as Iraq, but it's very different from what ISIL would build there, for example. And so and this is just another situation where we're dragging ourselves into this kind of churn that we have tacit complicity in because we were involved in it is the pattern of behavior of John McCain and Donald Rumsfeld with his selling chemical weapons to Saddam Hussein so that he could use weapons of mass destruction on the Iranians, and then later coming back and saying we know he's got weapons of mass destruction, and to quote Bill Hicks, because we looked at the receipt, and then somehow acting like this president doesn't care about the country because he doesn't want to go straight into the exact same activity that got us into this problem in the first place. And I appreciate the call. I'm going to grab another call. Who do we have, Dennis?
Let's go to Paul in Seattle.
Excellent. Hey, Paul, welcome to the show. Welcome back.
How's it going, Al?
Yeah.
How's it going? The first thing is we've lost this war already. We've spent...
Which one?
Yeah, really. Well, that's what I'm getting to, is that the estimates I've heard is that we spent between $4 and $6 trillion in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I heard some right-winger here locally say that, the problem was that ISIS, when Obama pulled out, ISIS raided a bank in Mosul and got $400 million. I said, $400 million? $4 trillion is 10,000 times more than that.
Yeah.
So apparently...
$9 billion went missing from one space in Iraq during the war. Remember that kerfuffle? $9 billion, $400 million. Who cares? The ISIL, and I'll let you get to your point in a second. The funny thing about ISIL is there are all these reports about how they're collapsing under the weight of trying to govern because they don't have enough money. As much money as they had coming in, they don't have enough money to actually operate as a genuine government. They can certainly roll through town in black hoods and cut people's heads off for smoking, which they've been doing, but keeping the lights and the water on is another thing entirely. But go ahead.
Sure. Well, $400 million wouldn't get us through Tuesday in Iraq. I mean,
no.
That's the problem. Well, but here's the thing. People keep wanting to, bust on Murhrica and Obama for saying, let's not connect this to Islam. I think that's people in this country who want a holy war. Because the one thing people aren't willing to do is acknowledge that ISIS, for however misguided or whatever, they must have a political objective.
Yes.
And the political objective has to be connected to what we were told. We were told, the Bush administration told us, that we won the Iraq War. And the surge worked, remember?
Yeah.
The surge worked because we paid them off. But just think about where's some more money. We paid, remember the Anbar awareness? We paid them off. We paid off the insurgency to back money, went home and said, we'll come back another day.
Mm-hmm.
And we were told we brought democracy to Iraq. Remember the purple fingers? I voted, right?
That's right.
Apparently, the unwritten message was, or the unspoken message was, but you could never leave.
That's right. We brought the only way we could bring democracy to Iraq in that methodology was to make it the new Alaska. Essentially, it has to become the 51st state. Is that's their argument? It has to be the 51st state, or it fails. It's madness.
And I think what you were saying about that. Well, I think ISIS is. So if they have a political agenda, which they must, it's not just all about Islam.
No.
Then the other Arabs in the region know what it is. And apparently, here's what people don't get is there was no ISIS when Saddam was there, and there was none of this going on. Saddam might have been a brutal dictator, but he knew Iraqi politics apparently a hell of a lot better than we do.
Right.
Because there weren't these uprisings. He was able to at least keep factions separated from one another. So this didn't happen, and apparently we still don't have any idea what we're doing there.
Right. Well, I totally agree. The interesting thing is to your point, some of the people in that escaped as hostages before before the beheadings started from ISIL, before they really ratcheted up and started making their push and gaining some ground, and quite frankly had to start cutting off some heads for their donors. They're doing it strictly as raising money from the psychos that have a lot of money in that region of the world, and as ransom. If you don't give us money, we will cut your reporter's head off or your citizen's head off. And this was their methodology, and it was functional in the beginning. Some people got rescued and also left. Those people said they never saw a Quran the entire time they were there. They never saw any of these guys stop for daily prayers. This was all political. This is about guys taking over an oil-rich area that is decimated. And then we start seeing, what effectively is, quote-unquote, British and American citizens in these cows without any accent whatsoever, and not speaking Farsi. And you go, there's a lot of contractors running around out there, and there's a lot of dough sitting in, in unprotected banks. Is that really all that's going on here? Is this really Islam? I don't think so. We'll be back right after this. I'm going to play this Donald Rumsfeld stuff when we come back because this is driving me nuts. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
Everybody's got a price. Everybody's gonna pay. There's the $1 Million Man.
I've Got Issues, hosted by Wayne Besson.
Big things are happening on this president's watch. This country is headed in the right direction. It is back on track, and we are staging a comeback because of President Barack Obama. And he's saying, you know what, guys, I have
Dude, we're doing
actually
something
done
right now. We got like
not
8
the
calls.
worst president,
There we go.
The Republicans have said, but I'm a transformative
You can tell when I'm
president.
pissed.
I've Got Issues, hosted by Wayne Besson. Saturdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Sponsored
Yo,
by
this dude
Berwyn
sound
Kia.
pissed. I
You
got a
always
call.
win at Berwyn Kia. Learn more at berwynkia.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Garrison, owner of Frugal Muse Books, Music, and Video in Darien. Every day we buy, sell, and trade with people just like you. People who believe in recycling those old novels or vinyl records you haven't read or listened to in years. Frugal Muse sells a wide variety of gently used and new books, movies, music, video games, locally made jewelry, and more. Plus, we special order brand new books at 20% off. Our store features over 6,000 square feet of browsing space, so you're sure to find lots of unique treasures for yourself or that hard-to-please loved one. Visit Frugal Muse at the southeast corner of 75th Street and Lamont Road in Darien, less than a mile from I-55 and I-355. For more information, log on to frugalmusebooks.com or call 630-427-1140. That's 630-427-1140. Frugal Muse Books, Music, and Video. Get inspired, save money, and trade your used stuff for the things you really want.
Frugal Muse is now featuring hundreds of unopened collectible Star Wars action figures at unbeatable prices. Get yours while supplies last.
How many sump pumps fail? I'm sure many of you know the answer since I've been saying it for the last 35 years. Hi, I'm Roy Spencer from Permaseal. The answer, of course, is all of them. It's not a matter of if, but when your pump will fail. Unfortunately, you may not realize there's a problem until your basement is flooded and you've incurred thousands of Permaseal at 800. Has different in your situation.
I think
safer because of me and my policies. This country is, it's a free country to say things, but not to be hurtful. And I think Rudy Giuliani, he's got nothing left to his name. He's got nothing but hate, and he's throwing it out there. I mean, I think he's just a hateful, vengeful person. And I gotta go home and deal with my wife here.
Understood. Do what you got to do. I hear you. So, well, I think the fascinating part of it, and it's ultimately, I think it's very clear that Julian, whatever's going on over at Fox News is contagious, and many of the people who tend to hang out there have that kind of abject hate, kind of drilled into them, I suppose, because that seems to be just the methodology, at that point. It's let's see. Do we have time for this? Yeah, I guess so. Okay, let's get started on some of this this Rumsfeld stuff, because I think it informs the entire discussion that we're having. And anybody who's on the line, if you can hold through the break, we'll talk to you at the top of the hour. This is Rumsfeld, and he's on what show is he on? One of these ridiculous right-wing talk shows. Anyways, Hugh Hewitt, is it? Maybe, yeah. So he's on there, and he's talking, and the discussion comes towards what we need to be doing in the Middle East. And of course, if there's an expert about that, it's absolutely Donald Rumsfeld.
Your most famous memo, which is the October 16th, 2003 snowflake, in which you declare, we lack metrics to know if you're winning or losing the global war on terror. Is there any doubt in your mind, Mr. Secretary, that we're losing?
I can't justify my comment numerically, but there is no question but that we're losing.
Okay, so I can't listen to that. I can't justify it numerically. I have no stats to prove that we are losing the war. Quite frank, and if he had any, if there was, for example, if there was a sign that attacks were up, that I don't know, there'd been another 9/11 during, or any semblance of a 9/11 type of attack under a Democratic president, this would, he'd be able to cite this. He's unable to cite any evidence, but it's undeniable we're losing.
The reason we're losing is because of the lack of leadership. That's the only reason. We have stepped back. We've said to the world that we're going to manage our economy like Greece.
Okay. Now, this is another talking point straight out of Ron Paul and straight out of Fox that shows economic mismanagement on the point of this president, that this president is going to, listen to that, manage our economy like Greece. Okay, what they mean, what that's about, that's about us using money for social programs and getting in over our head and unemployment and those kind of things. And this is bailout talk. This is all the same conversation we heard 6 years ago when the president walked into the collapse that the last president facilitated with the help of the costs of the Iraq War that Donald Rumsfeld downplayed entirely during his tenure in the Bush presidency, in the Bush administration. And this guy has the nerve to bring up the current state of the economy based on how many people in the beginning of Obama's presidency had to go on food stamps, had to receive extended unemployment benefits, how much we had to extend those unemployment benefits, how we had to invest in the American auto companies so that they would jumpstart again. This is basically everything that the president did and insisted on doing to help fundamentally restructure the foundation of our economy after the Bush presidency had turned it to sand. This guy has the nerve to use the grease analogy for us. In case there's no way I'm going to be able to play all this through the break. I'll play some more of it, and then we'll get some calls as well in. But understand what happened to Greece to some degree. Okay, in joining the Eurozone, Greece at one point had to they had overextended themselves as far as after the collapse that affected them as well. The ripple effect by our credit default swap nonsense that Elizabeth Warren has continued to rail against, that the Republicans insist on deregulating once again, and certainly Blue Dog Democrats need to be called on the floor for any participation in the limitation of those kind of regulations. Because when you've got $27 trillion in debt anchored on $11 trillion of total real estate in the entire United States, from every shed to every monument, you can never match it again. And when we come back, I'll finish this thought when we come back, because it's just, these people are insane. These people are, Donald Rumsfeld is a crazy person. And I do have a metric to prove it. We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. We'll be back with your calls, 773-763-9278.
I'm Ed Donahue. New Defense Secretary Ash Carter is talking about a change in plans in Afghanistan. He is in Kabul. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani wants to see a slowdown in President Obama's plan to cut troop levels in half by the end of this year and remove nearly all in 2016. Carter says the president is thinking about it.
We also have to look beyond troop numbers, because the United States and our coalition partners' long-term commitments in resources, equipment, and other support will be just as critical for Afghan security over the long haul.
Ghani and Obama will discuss possible changes to U.S. troop plans when Ghani visits Washington next month. In London today, Secretary of State John Kerry is accusing Russia of land grabbing in Ukraine, while at the same time talking about peace.
We are talking about additional sanctions, additional efforts. I'm confident that over the course of the next days, people are determined to make it clear we're not going to play this game.
Ukrainian officials and the rebels blame each other for breaking the ceasefire in eastern Ukraine. Meantime, Ukraine's president says the freeing of soldiers who were held captive by rebels is underway. Meantime, in Moscow, demonstrators vowed that last year's protest in Kiev that ultimately forced Ukraine's pro-Russian president to flee would never be repeated in Russia. A Minneapolis police officer was shot early today in what the department says was a targeted attack. The officer is in satisfactory but stable condition. Officers responded to a report of a burglary early this morning. They are now looking into whether the call was a setup for the shooting. No arrests have been made in Minneapolis. Two children, ages 1 and 6, were killed in an overnight house fire outside New York and Orange, New Jersey. 7 other people in the house escaped, including 2 children. Witnesses say jumped to safety. This is AP Radio News.
Your favorite progressive voices: Bill Press, Stephanie Miller, Tom Hartman, Norman Goldman, Amy Goodman, and Alan Colmes, all on one station. This is 820 AM WCPT Willow Springs, 92.5 WCPT FM DeKalb, 92.7 FM WCPY Arlington Heights, 99.9 FM WCPQ Park Forest, and streaming worldwide at chicagosprogressivetalk.com. This is Chicago's Progressive Talk.
The Norman Goldman Show.
CNN's ratings are off. I mean, it's just, look, so are MSNBC's, and so are Fox Boobs. Cable TV's ratings are really teeny tiny. Broadcast TV ratings are teeny tiny. And all these CBS Morning News, all of them have had shrinking ratings for years. And I offer you a theory why. because they don't provide news. It's all about silliness, fluff. There's no substance to any of this stuff.
Norman Goldman, weeknights at 5 p.m., right here on Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number.
Call 877-469-MY-TV.
The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. So
Culture.
cancel the cable and get
Live
more of your
here,
favorite channels
and then
in
frankly,
100%
this live
digital
not
quality
only
for
over the
less
South, but
money.
over the Midwest, and most of what we call flyover country is dramatically different than the culture that's lived in the bubbles of New York, Washington, D.C., and Hollywood. And yet they have so much influence. And we tend to think that maybe they are the norm. They think, by the way, we're crazy. I'll never forget sitting around with my own staff at Fox News, New Yorkers all, and something came up about guns, and they were saying about how nobody should ever own an AR-15. Well, there's just no reason to own an assault weapon. And I said, every weapon is an assault. A pencil is an assault weapon if you poke it in someone's eye. And then I really shocked them when I said, AR-15s, I got several of them. They were scared to death. I thought they were going to dive under the table. I really did. It was like they were, oh, he's a psychopath. And I said, you know, let me explain something. I said, the AR-7, the AR-15, yes, it's a powerful rifle, but it is less powerful than the rifle that I deer hunt with.
What'd you say?
I said it looks like it's 6 calls we get.
Look at that. All right.
With IRS free
Pow.
That's awesome.
brand name software,
Yep.
online tax prep, and e-filing for
We're gonna get
free.
Carrie every week here. We're trying to because they're blown up.
I know, man. It's turning into something.
E-file even helps with the new
Ooh,
healthcare
some kind of
provisions,
something.
and it's all for free. So, did we win anything? Everybody wins. Freefile.irs.gov. It's fast. It's safe. It's free.
You now have options. It's your choice. Did you know tests that could save your life from cancer are now available for little or no cost thanks to the healthcare law called the Affordable Care Act? Let this be the year you get screening tests that can prevent cancer or detect it early when it's most treatable. Don't let concerns get in your way. Talk to a doctor or other medical professionals to learn more about the best cancer testing options for you. Now you have options. It's your choice. Let's do this. To learn more about how the healthcare law can help you and your family get tested for cancer, contact your American Cancer Society at cancer.org or call 1-800-227-2345. That's 1-800-227-2345. And for answers to questions about the law or enrolling in a healthcare plan, visit healthcare.gov or call 1-800-318-2596.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum. Things are going to start happening to me now.
Exclusively for WCPT AM and FM in Chicago and streaming worldwide at chicagosprogressivetalk.com. Standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
To do the bind.
Welcome back to the show. We have a lot of calls, and so before I get further into this Donald Rumsfeld word salad, and this kind of, it's like he's playing the hits, you know? It's like he's just, you know, remember this old ditty? Perhaps if you know the words, you can sing along. There's no bigger threat than this dictator. So let's take some of our calls. 773-763-9278. Who do we have, Dennis? Really?
Lost you there?
Yep, I lost you for a second. We were retraining. We're okay.
Yeah, there you go. Every time I go to, like I'm going to the break, you jump right back up. That's
well, that's what happens. Who do we have?
Doris?
Yeah.
This is Doris in Palatine.
Cool. Hey, Doris, go ahead.
Hey, hi. Thanks again. And I listen often on Saturday when I do my computer work or my, office type work.
We'll try to keep you not too distracted, I guess.
Yeah, right. First of all, I do want to thank you, being a Chicagoan, living outside of Chicago, but still,
Yep.
For bringing to light who can hear us on WCPT the things that we can't get on television. So
right.
Thank you for that. So speaking of that, listening to Tom Hartman, I think you know the guy.
Yeah, of course. Love Tom.
Of course.
I use his every time I go to do stand up in Washington. I use his studio. He lets me use his studio. It's terrific.
Yeah,
So,
he was talking about Rudy Giuliani yesterday and brought up some facts about, and you can play his thing because I don't. But it was written about his background as growing up. This is referring to the fact that the president wasn't brought up like the rest of us.
Right.
And the thing is, I just don't understand if people who want to say things like that and know that they have some, skeletons in their closet that most of us. I mean, one thing, his father went to jail.
Yeah.
For
under a false name. That's one of the reasons why he was able to kind of skate that later, is that his dad actually used an alias when he committed his crime.
Right, and he didn't stop when he got out, of course. He was still involved, from what Tom had said, this book said, is with the mafia at that point. And now, I've never read or heard, being here in the Chicago area, as I said, knowing the president as a legislature and then a senator, a U.S. senator, never heard anything about his background other than his grandfather and his grandmother and his mother were the ones that raised him after the father was killed,
right,
and that sort of thing, so he wasn't around. And I just can't understand when people do not look into things like this and listen to things like what Rudy is saying. The thing is, we need to educate ourselves, and until people like you and Tom start, getting this out to the other fraction of those people who do not do this sort of thing, it just bothers me. It's like going in and taking, Math 101 and then going into NASA and say, yeah, I have had my math courses.
It's even, I agree, Doris. I think it's even worse than that, because I think one of the things that drives them crazy about the president is the evidence that he is contrary to what they believe about him is so incredibly strong that it drives them to a level of just kind of it seems like they drift from reality. For example, Rudy Giuliani and the conservatives always run as family values and true Americans, and that's one of their big kind of running points. Rudy Giuliani, I think, is on his third marriage. I'm fairly certain. I know that his first wife was a cousin. His second, and he he had the priest annul it on the grounds that she was a cousin because he got mad at her, even though he knew she was a cousin in the beginning. Like, that was never a question. His second wife and the woman who had his children found out they were getting a divorce from a press conference he gave. And I guess he and his third wife he started dating while he was still married to his first one. Now, love finds a way. I don't really have a lot of judgments about people who change relationships over the course of their lives, because life is a very big thing. But don't proselytize to me about how superior your relationship skills are, or how much more American your relationship skills are than this president's are, when he's in the same relationship that he's always had. He's married once with 2 daughters. He's a good dad and husband. You can't even, and I think the fact they can't even compete on those grounds makes them a bit nuts. The other part too is that Victoria Jackson, and I'm sure you know who she is. She's a former member who's lost her mind, and she did this song called "There's a Muslim in the White House." Okay, she just released this. This isn't from the beginning of his presidency when everybody was convinced of this nonsense. She released this, and what's her evidence that there's a Muslim in the White House? One of them is he's pro-abortion and pro-gay marriage. It's proof that he's a Muslim because he's pro-gay marriage. Meanwhile, ISIL and ISIS and the Muslim countries of the world are the most violent towards gay people of any country. There are countries where they are it's tormented. There are certainly countries where they are not afforded every right, like ours. But if you really want to pick where they're treated the most horrifyingly, it would be it wouldn't be those that you would sort of separate from the early Abrahamic traditions, let's just say. And it's amazing to me that that's their evidence. And I think the fact that they're up against, the evidence is so against them, it just makes them bananas. Let's see. I've got 2 minutes left before this, and I want to take some more calls after this next break. But I will. Here's a little more of Donald Rumsfeld playing the hits.
Or Europe, and that means that we're telling the world we're not going to be, as a country, what we've been in past decades. Second, we are.
I don't know how we're telling people we've done that, by the way. And secondly, Russia's credit rating was downgraded to sell this week. They were downgraded to, I think, from BAA3 to BA1, which is 1 degree below invest in this country. There's such a low bar for investing in a country that some impoverished African nations and Middle Eastern countries that are just, I mean, there's almost no population get a BA2. But Russia has a BA1, which is basically get your money out of Russia now. This is bad. And Moody's isn't the first one to do it. Standard & Poor's 3 months ago downgraded their thing. And remember what effect that had on our economy and how we started behaving when our credit rating was downgraded. So the idea that somehow the plan that the president is instigating towards Russia isn't working and isn't having an effect on whether or not they're coming to the table to deal with the situation in Ukraine, and the only solution, according to John McCain and his ilk, is we need soldiers there? For Pete's sake. That's what Rumsfeld says.
Defense investment of the United States has gone from 10% of GDP a year under Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Johnson, and today it's less than 4%.
It's okay. His other big problem is we're investing. We used to invest during the Cold War 10% of our GDP, and now it's 4%. Well, first of all, we're a more prosperous nation than we were then. We have more money. We're still spending more than every other country by a factor of 6. What? How much more? What is it? 10 times every other country in the world? And where does that money go? It either rots in missile silos or on tarmacs. It certainly doesn't go to the VA. Where does he want this money to go? To bunker busters that we used once? We're spending $20 million a pop per missile? Or just keep spending them on planes that are never going to fly in John Boehner's district? Because that's how you show you love America. That's ridiculous. We'll be back with more of your calls. 773-763-9278. Oh, New Trier, why would you put a bust of this man in front of the school, you crazy? Why would anyone even float that idea? Woof. We'll be back.
Join WCPT Saturday mornings for The Beacon.
Can you say Milwaukee Avenue?
Milwaukee Avenue.
So you say it right.
Who doesn't say it right?
There's a lot of people that don't say it. They call it Milwaukee Avenue.
No. So Milwaukee is, yes.
I always used to kid before I had voice lessons from Mr. Clark, Everett Clark, one of the renowned actors on the radio. He said, if you're going to pronounce it, you're going to pronounce it correctly.
It's Bill Jurek, Laney Kleeman, and The Beacon. Saturdays at 7 a.m. on WCPT AM and FM.
Are you worried about losing your home to foreclosure? If you've been threatened with foreclosure or received legal papers from your bank, you have approximately 30 days to respond. If you do not respond, you could lose your home. You have rights. Act now to protect your rights. You can stay in your home. Many times you can even modify your loan.
I can't hear you over those.
You can get past this, but you must act right now. Call National Foreclosure Defense right now.
Holy smokes.
800-989-1838. 800-989-1838.
I just hear a point where it's like, okay, and I'll just like either drop them or just put them back on hold. You know what I mean?
Now is the time to fight back and save your home.
It seems like you get
Time
it,
is
so
limited,
we got this.
call right now. 800-989-1838. 800-989-1838. Call the professionals at National Foreclosure Defense right now. 800-989-1838.
If you or someone you know is addicted to drugs or alcohol, please write down this number. 1-800-426-6186. That's 1-800-426-6186. By calling Aid in Recovery for help with drug and alcohol addiction, you can turn your life around. Our advisors are ready to match you with a proven treatment center that will end your drug or alcohol addiction once and for all. Your future is a bright place. Don't waste any more time making friends and family worry about you. When you call right now, you'll speak to an expert advisor who understands what you're going through. We can help you break your addiction to drugs and alcohol before it's too late. This call is completely confidential, and if you have private insurance, there'll be little to no cost to you. Take control of your life now. Make the one call count. 1-800-426-6186. That's 1-800-426-6186. 1-800-426-6186.
Now back to the Housemarks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Welcome back to the show. Let's keep taking your calls, 773-763-9278. Who do we go to, John? Dennis?
We're going to go to Frank in New Mexico.
Cool. Hey, Frank, welcome.
You know, I heard the caller mention Rudy Giuliani. You know, the Italian-Americans got an old saying about Rudy G. You know, Rudy got rid of the mafia out of New York City, and then the Republican Party took over organized crime.
That's right. They moved him to New Jersey, where they could shut down the traffic. Right.
In the past few weeks, Hal, speaking out against unnecessary wars we can't afford.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been called a communist and a terrorist sympathizer more times than I can count. You know, they're shameless, Hal. You know, conservatives have lost their minds. It's like a third of our population is auditioning for a spot on Fox News.
Yeah, or the new 24 series. Like they have this sort of fantastic idea somehow that they've that they're going to be the one to save the circumstance. That they're going to be, you know, that somehow they're going to be called up, and yet everybody rooting for has, you know, every time war comes up, they're off of it, sending other people's kids to go, or deferring themselves out of it. It's amazing to me. Yeah.
I think it's all about the war profiteering and the arms dealing myself, to be honest.
I don't think you're wrong.
They support. I think they support ISIS more than a majority of Muslims do. So.
Well, they seem to have that envy thing, like when it's those guys and Putin. It's almost like this. You can't argue with the effectiveness. It's like they're Ash in Alien. You know what I mean? Like the robot who looked at the alien and went, "I admire its purity." There's an element of, well, you can't argue with results. You got, granted they are killing women and children and beheading people in the streets, but it's an effective tactic. You know, they really do. And like maybe our president would take his shirt off and ride a horse now and again and put people in jail for singing about being gay, then maybe we'd have a good country again. Like that seems to be the reasoning. I appreciate the call. Let me grab somebody else. Who do we have? Because we got a bunch of people stacked up and I don't want to leave them hanging. Thank you.
It's Steve in the Gold Coast.
Oh, hey, Steve. Welcome to the show.
Yes. Thank you for taking my call. Unfortunately, I would take issue with what I think are well-intended callers, some of these statements that have been made. I mean, for instance, the notion that, let's just leave Assad where he is, and, we shouldn't take issue with the way in which he reigns or the way in which Saddam reigns. I mean, this is akin to what happened in the former Yugoslavia. I mean, it's not that you had, these people who were wonderfully coexisting and were happy that their neighbor was of a different faith or ethnicity. The reality was it was akin or analogous to, your parents standing over you, with a belt, and that's how you ensure peace. But that's not a real peace. That's an artificial peace that's brought about through a notion that, if you do something against one's neighbor, I'm going to be... and their grandchildren to these regimes where, yes, you don't have this kind of intensive conflict that's going on, but it certainly doesn't leave them in any sort of ideal position. And until we have some sort of remedy for that, don't tell me, we just should have left Saddam in
Well,
place.
I think isolation. I don't think there's. Here's the argument, though. I think that total isolationist policy is not the answer, but there's certainly what we're talking about is looking at it from a realistic standpoint. That if you want to take out like someone like Saddam, you don't say it's going to take 3 weeks and $9 billion, and you don't send in 150,000 troops and topple them, send their military packing, and then I guess assume that that's going to solve the problem itself. You also have the problem where you have the same kind of back and forth sectarian violence there in places like Rwanda and the Congo, and we seem totally disinterested in solving that problem militarily. It's not like we roll in because there's no resource to be had.
Right, and it's important to note that, again, and this is something that the Republicans are very good at, and have critiqued President Obama for noting, and that is that the idea that we have no role, or the West has had no role, in creating these issues, because we created the borders, especially after the First World War. We arbitrarily created borders and boundaries and lumped groups together from parts of Europe through the Middle East and even Asia, and then we're surprised to find that, lo and behold, these people are at each other's throats, when in fact those lines were completely arbitrary. The notion that because everybody spoke Serbo-Croatian in Yugoslavia meant that they all loved each other. No, it was a lot of nonsense. You had a Muslim faction, you had a Croatian faction that was Roman Catholic, you had a Serbian faction that was Eastern Orthodox, and so the idea that war broke out is surprising given the fact that, that the lines were completely arbitrarily drawn by...
Right, and effectively that's what Saddam Hussein was kind of doing, and you had the Kurdish territory, you had the southern territory, and then the Sunnis and the Shiites kind of separated those two areas amongst each other to some degree, and so you had tribal warlords in the south, and he had control over the place, but one of the ways he did it was sort of by creating his own north and south and Canada, as it were.
Right.
I agree.
And the last point I want to make, and again, when people call it and, you want to sort of, provide a solution, I mean, at least provide one that has some degree of realism behind it. The idea of that demanding that we have a draft that's going to be all-inclusive, there isn't a movement or support for this on the left or the right amongst the military. Nobody in the military wants a army or military made up partially of people who really don't want to be there because it's terrible for morale, it's ineffective. The worst soldiers in the world, we found out after Vietnam, were the people who were forced to be there because they lent to the destruction of morale within units, the cohesion of the unit was threatened. So nobody wants this. So please stop asking for something that no one's going to support. And there's a logic to it. I understand in terms of
I don't think they're genuinely. I don't think anybody's genuinely asking for a draft. I think it's a way of calling their bluff. I think this is a way of verbally calling their bluff. That somehow that they're what the systemology, and I appreciate the call, Steve. The systematic way of creating war that the Republicans always seem to be for is send other kids. And as long as we have a volunteer army, their kids don't have to go. They'll always have an option. And even when we have a draft, at least they have to get a deferment and dodge it so they're on the record later of having done so. I'm not for a draft at all. I think an all-volunteer army is valuable, and quite frankly, an unwillingness to actually join and fight the war is sort of a way of expressing your vote, whether you think it's a good idea or not, to some degree. After 9/11, people were driven in some ways to join, to fight what they perceived and what they were told to be a mortal enemy of the United States. And I think they were very disappointed to find out that this was not their experience. This was not what they were actually sent to do. Let's take another caller. Who do we have? Okay. Hey, Bob. Welcome to the show.
Oh, and it's great to talk to you, Hal. And basically, the first point I wanted to make was McCain in that clip you played earlier, saying that air power couldn't win a conflict.
Right.
You needed troops on the ground. between all these jerks is there are no winnable conflicts. How can you? The only winnable way to win a conflict is to avoid it. Now, and that's not exclusive. You've got to avoid it without giving up what was worth fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be able to talk to people and negotiate. Steve made some excellent arguments. I wish we could listen to some Republicans that argued for conflict like Steve did, because basically we don't get any reasons other than oil or money in some weapons supplier's pocket from the Republicans.
Right.
And if you look at what happened, that's basically it. The other point I wanted to make, and I don't want to give Steve too much credit, I don't think that sending in troops, even when we've got a good reason, is usually the proper thing to do.
Well, especially in an economically driven and technologically driven world that we are in. In the age of information and there are literally dozens, if not hundreds of solutions to every problem. And this knee-jerk reaction to always go to, we need boots on the ground, this will solve this now. If we send in troops right now and they just shoot this guy and they shoot these guys, then, and we make sure that the guns go to these guys so they only shoot these guys, and we'll fly these things in, and this is our plan. We did this before. It will work this time, I promise. It's really odd to go back to that old kind of line about the definition of insanity, of doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. And that nothing could be closer to that as an example than what John McCain is presenting as a solution in Syria. It's the exact same thing he's presented as a solution in every single war we've gotten bogged down in the last 35 years. And it seems like that's their only solution. We got to take a break. I appreciate the call so much, and sort of the fact that you and Steve can actually come from two different points of view on this, and actually I think understand each other's point of view is the value. That's why I always said in the Democratic Party, man, you can have the entire conflict and conversation from liberal to conservative and actually come up with a solution somewhere in there instead of entrenchment. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah, that's me. I graduated from New Trier. Just barely.
Back on the beat with Dick Kay. From the Chicago Food Depository, he is Paul Morello, who is the communications director at the Greater Chicago Food Depository. Welcome, Paul.
Oh, thanks for having me. So we're on pace right now to serve about 5.5 million individuals at food pantries just in Cook County this year.
Back on the beat with Dick Kay. Saturdays from 1 to 4 p.m. is sponsored by Coaching Financial Concept, helping you win the game, coachfinancial.com.
Are you living with pain? I was, after a nasty fall. I got relief with 1 hour pain relief. I'm Barry Yarconi, president, and here's Lisa, a Marine who was injured in Iraq.
After surviving an explosion, I was on horrible painkillers for lingering head, shoulder, back, and knee pain, but I hated the dangers and side effects. My friend told me about 1 hour pain relief, and now I'm off the drugs.
1 hour pain relief is the result of 15 years of research on an amazing extract from hops, the plant used to flavor beer.
Whether your pain is from an injury or just aging, you get safe, all-day relief in less than 1 hour.
We're so sure you'll love 1 hour pain relief too that we'll send you a 1-week trial for just a small shipping charge. Call 800-269-9800 right now. That's 800-269-9800. There's no gimmicks, no obligation, no automatic shipments. Stop living with pain. Call 800-269-9800 for your 1-week trial or visit onehourpainrelief.com. That's 800-269-9800.
When you were a little kid and you thought about what you wanted to be, teaching was at the top of your list. But things changed. And as you got older, teaching didn't seem like the best
I can't hear you over the...
So you're thinking you'll be something else.
Feed.
But what would your
How about that? You
Hey,
good
there
now?
you are.
Oh,
Yeah.
goodness. I'll remember that every week now again. But no, we're going to go ahead and block the lines because we got these calls now, so we'll plow through them.
Cool. How many do we have? Still 7?
Still 7.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, man.
Oh, and so what's happened a couple of times is that the thing has retrained a couple of times because it's retraining.
Okay.
And then it comes back to life. It takes when it does that, it takes about 8 to 10 seconds, it seems.
Okay.
And it goes retrain. I notice I'm not hearing anything. I look over, it says retraining, and then it comes back on its own. Usually that's what happens when it's retraining. Very seldom will it disconnect. So you can kind of understand that it will be about that long. And then if it goes any longer than 20 seconds, it's catastrophic, and I've had to restart. I think it might be that I've got to update the firmware in this one. So I'm going to do that this week. I'm going to do it today, actually. And then I'm going, if it doesn't work and we'll do another test on Monday. And if it's acting funky at all, I'm going to send it back to you guys and have McCarthy blank it and redo it from there, mix it to that machine so that it's, right in house. So you can test it right there before you send it back. That should solve it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Like I said, I was on Matt this week. Like, hey, man, test with Hal. Don't
yeah,
forget.
right. It worked. It helped, obviously.
Yeah. So I listened last week, and I was in Geneva, Illinois, and I just wanted to fly over here and help.
Yeah, but it was just, it's not your fault. It's just the machine's plugged into the wrong, 2 of the machines are just plugged into dead lines.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, mega worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
Welcome back. Let's take more of your calls. 773-763-9278. Go ahead, Dennis. Who do we have?
Yeah, let's go to Steve in San Diego.
Excellent. Hey, Steve. Welcome back. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, Hal. Hey, I want to thank you. I've been listening to you chewing bubblegum and kicking butt for about a few years now. And what's kind of cool is, I was in Iraq 03 and 04. I was flying helicopters. And as I came back, I left the military. I retired after 20 years. And as I started processing everything I saw, it's pretty apolitical as a professional soldier. I kind of had to put things in perspective. Your voice and other voices on the left have really helped me process.
I appreciate that. We do our best, and I do think we take very seriously, and in as apolitical a way as I can say this is that I just know that having spoken to Rachel Maddow and having spoken to people like Tom Hartman, all these people take very seriously the use of military force, not just because of the damage that a giant country like ours can do in another country and the blowback that can come from it if we're not careful, but out of care for the fact that we're sending our soldiers into a place where they will not come back whole, possibly, or at all. And that's not fair to them if we're going to, if we're asking this much, the least we can do is ask of ourselves to do our due diligence to make sure this is absolutely the right thing to do and the only thing to do. So go ahead.
Well, that's interesting because the voices that I hear that kind of substantiate my experience are that responsibility that you're feeling is very important because you don't hear it on the other side. Well, what I think is I'm seeing the emperor has no clothes, and you guys are with me seeing that he's naked. What I wanted to say, though, Secretary Rumsfeld, you were talking about him. I remember flying an aircraft, and my commander was talking directly to him on a sat phone. And then months later, I watched him deny that he knew anything about Abu Ghraib. And that guy had his fingers everywhere.
Of course.
And his assertions are ludicrous. The other thing I want to say, these guys are so smart that if you look at post-war Vietnam and Cambodia, post-Tito Bosnia and Yugoslavia, you can't tell me that these guys that have all the answers did not know what was coming in Iraq. And as I'm watching ISIS take over these areas, I think about al-Baghdadi and those things. I've got a lot of blood and sweat invested in those areas, and to see what's happening now is disturbing, but not anticipated. But you've been calling these guys out. Please keep doing it, because I'll tell you, that first 6 months over there, we didn't have food or water, but we had contractors, we had oil men, we had Christian missionaries coming in. We weren't flying supplies to soldiers. We weren't covering convoys. We were taking care of people that were in Iraq to make money.
Yeah.
You just keep doing what you're doing. I want to tell you one other thing.
Go ahead.
You got me off my butt a few years ago to start playing guitar.
Good.
And I want you to know that and it was you kind of talking about music that got me doing it. And after years, I started doing it. It's the best PTSD treatment I've ever encountered. It's a really happy place, and I suggest it to any other veterans that are out.
That's right, man. Connect with your art that's inside, and I look forward to seeing you play sometime. My band is, and you're down in San Diego, you said, or?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. My band is playing at. I'll announce the date soon, but we're gonna be opening for Steel Panther at the House of Blues in June. And if you feel comfortable, I'd be more than happy for you to come up and jump on stage with us or something. That would be great. Just
But I'll shake your hand, buddy. But after 2 years, it's starting to sound like something.
Yeah, that's all it takes, man. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. I appreciate the call and thanks so much. Yeah. Cheers. I was losing. Is he saying something else? I couldn't quite.
Yeah, it sounded like he was going away there. So
yeah, I think he was talking to somebody else. Okay, good. I didn't want to cut him off. Okay, let's see. Yeah, we got a couple more minutes. Let's grab let's burn through our callers and make sure everybody gets a shot.
Yeah, I just want to say all the phone lines are blocked right now. So big thank you to everybody who called in. That's awesome. Try and call in earlier, and we'll try and get you on. You know
Absolutely.
What I mean? So let's go to Dave. He's in Illinois.
Excellent. Hey, Dave. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Al. Yeah, when you mentioned on Rudy, first of all, with being married 3 times, did he wear the tuxedo every time? Or?
Yeah, right. I don't know if the rule is did he have to wear white or what the rule is for that. I don't think it's interesting.
Wear dresses a few times.
That's true. Well, I mean, believe me, I will never take any quarter with anybody who has a problem with wearing a man wearing a dress. I've done it a couple of times in my professional life, so I can't really throw stones. I will say this though, that the idea that they are as welcoming as they are on the Republican side to both him and Ted Nugent from the family values standpoint is maddening to me. I don't know how you can defend it. I don't care about it to some degree. I mean, I think they're gross, but I don't. Yeah, go ahead.
And then they're talking about getting into, like you say, getting into wars everywhere else. So what about the other week? I just read where the total army's down to 490,000 now because of the sequestration.
Right.
And and they're pushing more and more to go for like special forces and stuff, because that way you can have a little lighter footprint and they don't go for as long a tours.
Oh, and by the way, watch for that to be a consistent thing going forward. That our investment militarily is going to be in gear, not in people. And whatever direction you feel about that, it is not. There are good reasons why both anti-war and pro-war people will always shoot for that. The Rumsfelds of the world love the idea that we're making giant bombers because they're expensive, and those companies make a lot of money. The reason the president
reading that right now the Army wants like 5,000 soldiers to go for special forces, and
right.
And talking about like with the cost back in December, and this was just from like August to December, we were $1 billion into it then with another 5.5 on the way.
Well, that's nothing. Well, I think we're up to $24 billion on the fighter jet that's never going to fly. So, chump change by comparison. So,
and then I just read where we last year we had already 1,600 Hellfire missiles over that Iraq, and we delivered another 230 or so this year, and they're waiting on about 10,000 M16s and 23,000 magazines and then the combat optical sights they're going to send, and they've already sent, body armor, and they're waiting on about 200 MRAPs and stuff with special stuff on it.
Yeah, the Hellfire missile itself, those cost $58,000 a piece. And so far, coalition aircraft have dropped 4,615 bombs and Hellfire missiles, which is more than last year. So, yeah.
Right. I thought you might find that of interest with all of this.
Oh, that was 27. Okay.
We're getting deeper and deeper into it, with the money, who was it we were in debt to before? China?
Well, China only owns, and that's one of the big refrains. I will say that we use the China argument quite a bit about debt and whatnot. China just buys bonds like anybody else buys bonds. The majority of our debt is taken from the Social Security Trust Fund, which I find more frightening and more upsetting. Because another country buying bonds can't direct policy. They just lose money on their bonds if we as a country go down. It actually makes them more invested in us doing well than they would normally. They have no impetus to lose money on the money that they've invested in ours. It's just normal city bonds and federal bonds, that kind of structure. We don't ask them for money. But we do siphon it out of the Social Security Trust Fund and use it for things like the Iraq War. More money is owed back into the Social Security Trust Fund by activities that we've, like this, than we owe to China by a factor of, I think, 6 or 10. So that's actually worse. But borrowing the money in and of itself to drop a bomb is always a problem because, talk about an expendable resource. I appreciate the call. Let me grab somebody else real quick because we're getting near the end, and I appreciate where you're coming from. Who do we have next, Dennis?
Let's go to Richard.
Cool. Hey, Richard, welcome.
Hi. Yeah, thank you. I was calling about Giuliani when he had his girlfriend and he was married. His wife was thrown out of the mayoral mansion.
Yeah, he announced to her that day or whatever, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but so I just thought, I don't know why this guy has any credence with anybody. He was down at ground zero for about a half hour, So
yeah.
That anchored him in our forever as an American hero. But I wanted to mention two other things. Assad, who we want to put a black hat on, one of your prior callers said, he's a very useful person to us right now. If he wasn't there, who knows with ISIS? ISIS is, I guess, a bigger problem if you listen to the media. But
I would say we would have a bigger Yemen on our hands. That's it, because the Houthis just took over Yemen. Right, Houthis just took over Yemen. They're sort of an equivalent. They're not quite as vile as ISIS, but they certainly have their tendencies in the extremist view. But they're not capable of running a government, so it would just be another large failed state.
Yeah, it would be a bigger, massive problem. And the other thing about I'm old enough to remember the draft during Vietnam, and somebody called about how it ruined the Army. Yeah, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a democracy, you can have wars on the cheap. We've been having it since Vietnam. The Vietnam War, we'd still be in Vietnam if there hadn't been a draft, because there were so many people whose lives were perhaps going to be affected by the draft. And they got rid of all that anti-war stuff by going to the lottery, which is the precursor to the all-volunteer. So an American draft, America's got some policies in other countries that are causing us a lot of trouble, and the only way to keep it in to hold back this government is to have the people being suffering. And right now they don't suffer. All they do is they pay for it, and they applaud snipers and everything. But none of it, American people aren't really in that war. We've been in that damn Iraq and Afghanistan for 14 years. If there was a draft and there are a lot of body bags coming back here, it would be a different thing. The people would rise up. So a draft is essential, I believe, for a democracy. Otherwise, we're just nothing but a bunch of Hessians who are we're doing the hiring.
Right, and your only other step,
because the military doesn't want it, and it's not because they're not good soldiers. It's because they don't want any scrutiny over their policies.
Right. And if rich people and rich people's kids were going into there, there'd be a lot more nitpicking on the Hill about strategy than we're just sending a lot of people who want to be citizens and low income whites and blacks and Native Americans, which is what ends up being the case. The
rich will always get out. The rich will always avoid it. They'll leave the country and then come back and claim they're patriots. But
sure.
I don't agree about what that person's thought was on Vietnam. We'd still be there if it hadn't been for the anti-war sentiment that grew for about 10 years, 65 to 75 or whenever the lottery came in 73, I believe.
Yeah.
And that was it for anti-war. So in America, we're getting people to fight for us down in El Salvador.
Mm-hmm.
We're nothing but a bunch of people hiring thugs. And they're giving these aliens citizenship that they fight for us. In another war. Well, what kind of a country is that?
Mm-hmm. Well,
how are we going to hold back our policies when it's on the cheap like this?
Exactly. It's funny. We're like using migrant workers for military exercises. It's that part's kind of crazy. I do think that people who are willing to serve in the military for us, in a capacity other than combat should be at a higher premium as far as citizenship goes because of the functionality of. Oh yeah, we do have to take a break. I'm way over. It does help us grow our the members of society that can actually build businesses here and the like. That's who we will attract as far as people from another country to fight for the United States or be citizens of the United States. If we just are looking from soldiers from another other countries to come and join us, it gets into a really sketchy area. And because we end up just giving military training to people who may or may not want to stay around and stick here. That's a bit odd. So anyways, we'll be back right after this. More your calls, 773-763-9278. I think the happy ending is going to be how many calls we've gotten today. It's pretty awesome, right, Dennis?
Woo!
Yeah. Okay, we'll be back.
Hey man, sorry about that. My pots are a little mixed up, and I.
That's totally cool. Don't worry about it.
I didn't want you to think I'm like, come on, man.
Do it. Get out of here.
Not at all.
Some guy named Stefan on Twitter says, I'm actually from Old Trier, back in the old country in Germany, which, New Trier is the sister, Winnica is the sister city of.
Hey man, it looks like we got 3 callers too.
Cool. Okay, well, we should be able to get them and then sneak in a happy ending at the end. But I almost feel like that is it.
Yeah.
How many calls we got? It's great.
That'll be this will be lightning round, man.
Totally.
I just want to say thanks. Okay, great. Thanks for the call.
Wonderful. As long as I don't start retraining in the middle of it, right?
Yeah, we haven't done that all hour.
Well, we did actually during Steve, but he kept talking, so it didn't matter. I was retraining and it went, I was like, oh, at least it's during Steve. By the time I come back, and he hadn't stopped the sentence.
Welcome back to the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. It's now time for the happy ending.
In keeping with the glorious aspect of how many calls we've had today, and everybody's participation is so welcome. I can't tell you how much I appreciate everybody's voice when you call in and when you pop up on Twitter. We've had one of my Twitter followers, SmartCar42, this guy Bill Potter. He's saying this is interesting. He's talking about Rumsfeld and Bush, but he goes, I think I posted something about Jeb Bush, and he said, so true, Hal. Apparently he doesn't listen to or read his own family blurbs, but then he's just another Bush, right? Meaning that Jeb Bush just criticized the president about reaching out to Iran and limiting their enrichment, when it turns out that was a plan that was floated during the Bush administration, but they couldn't get it through their own Republicans in the House and Senate. So his own brother fielded that idea as well, and Jeb pointed out that was an American-hating activity by the president. Let's finish. We got 3 callers, and I want to get everybody in. So if you could keep your idea high and tight, that would really help, so everybody gets a chance, and we'll be back.
This is John in Indiana.
Okay, go ahead. Hey, John.
Hey, good morning, Hal.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Hal. I think we need to put sanctions on the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Do you know why that is?
But I have some idea, but why don't you tell me?
Well, we need to put sanctions on them because the island of Ireland belongs to the Irish people. And so the British, they've got indigenous English-speaking people in Northern Ireland, but we should be putting sanctions on the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland because the people of Ireland deserve that land. See, this is the same logic that we're using against Russia and in Ukraine. Ukraine is to Ireland as the Donetsk and Lugansk people are to Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So we're putting sanctions against Russia. Well, why don't we put sanctions against Great Britain? Because they've got their people in Northern Ireland. So it's the same deal. These are indigenous people. We believe in self-determination and democracy. They don't want Kievian government. They want their own states. We should be supporting. That's what America's all about. And that's how we rejected Great Britain in the first place and formed our own democracy. So Obama is dead wrong on this one.
Well, I will say for the record that the difference being military force. Right now the Irish and the English are not currently at war, and they actually have both a judicial system and a governmental system where they could form a separation agreement, much like Scotland tried to do through a vote earlier this year. That went down, but it did actually happen as a vote. Ukraine does not have that option right now, and the Russian military force is what's being sanctioned, not actually the idea that somehow Ukraine belongs to Russia or that it has its own separatist rights. It's the fact that Russia is using both pro-military forces that they're supplying with military arms that have crossed the border into another NATO-recognized country. So the sanctions are not so much about whether or not they have a right to land or that belief. The sanctions are about how they're going about doing it. Does that make sense? Anyways, let's get to our next caller.
Lightning round. Looks like it's George in Oak Lawn.
Cool. Hey, George. Go ahead.
Hey, hello. Talking about Giuliani, some of the points I wanted to make about his perfidious nature have already been made. But,
sure.
In New York, they have a mansion called Gracie Mansion, which is the New York equivalent of the White House, and that's where the mayor lives.
Right.
And when he was carrying on an affair with his mistress, he was making whoopee with her downstairs in the mansion while his wife was asleep upstairs in the mansion. And, yet these people have the gall to attack Clinton. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the real problem is that the right makes these kind of scurrilous personal attacks, like the ones Giuliani just made on the president, because they know that there is never going to be a coordinated counterattack by the Democrats. I mean, I was hoping and expecting to hear howls of outrage from Kirsten Gillibrand and Chuck Schumer, the two Democratic senators of New York, and for every statewide office holder from the governor on down, and from the congressional delegation, and Democrats in Washington hammering Giuliani on the airwaves. And what do you hear? Nothing.
Right.
They handled this. They had a war room, and their working strategy was nothing is allowed to go unanswered. And the maximum amount of time that something festers is 24 hours. You hit them back sooner. This is the old Chicago rules in practice, and the Democrats aren't doing it. They come at you with their fists, you use a ball bat. They come with a knife, you use your gun. They put one of yours in the hospital, you put 10 of theirs in the morgue. And the Democrats just sit there and take it, and mamby-pamby don't say anything back. So why would Giuliani not activate his base by using this kind of stuff when he knows that it's not going to cost him anything?
Right. I agree with you. I think the president has always had a problem with trying to invigorate a fight in Democrats that, especially in the ones who are entrenched and have been there for a while, just isn't there. And it's funny that we get our Golden Gloves boxer, who is was our Senate leader, is the most Pooh Bear sounding guy that you could possibly have in office. I swear to God, he sounds like Sebastian Cabot, who was the voice of Winnie the Pooh half the time. When he's trying to quote unquote talk tough, it's very curious to me. I appreciate the call. Let's get one more caller in because we've only got 2 minutes left in the show, and I want to make sure they get on.
My happy ending is that someone said making whoopee on the show. Here's David in San Francisco.
Cool. Hey, David, go ahead real quick.
Hey, howdy, all. First of all, let me recommend a great website, warisacrime.org.
Okay.
And this is David Swanson's website, and he's got a nice quote in it today from Mark Twain. Sometimes I wonder whether the world is being run by smart people who are putting us on, or by imbeciles who really mean it. And I was spurred to call when you were talking about the cost of jet fighters and whatnot, and I looked it up. There's a Time magazine list of the 11 most expensive planes in the world, jet fighters and whatnot. They start at $94 million, and they have gotten rid of number 11, but number 10 is sitting at $2.4 billion per plane.
Right.
So when you start looking at crashing a $94 million plane or a quarter, there are a whole bunch of them that are running at $250 million per. And you imagine what that would do for our school systems, or what it would do for our libraries, or for cleaning up the coastlines, or whatnot. These guys are totally frauding us because their financing is put off onto the next 3 generations.
Yep. I appreciate it.
Sorry, there we got to wrap it up, bud.
That's true. We got only a minute left in the show. I think my happy ending this week, and I think you agree, Dennis, is that we had a lot of callers this week, and that everybody was really invigorated and involved in the conversation. That's awesome. My dream would be that turns into voting as well, and the like. Don't forget at Hal Sparks on Twitter, and of course WCPT's Twitter is just at WCPT. Is it not? Dennis, I think so.
Yeah. Right.
And so be sure to follow them as well. And we will see you next week, and Johnny Million will be joining us. And thank you guys so much for such a great show today. And we had a fairly tech-free show today as far as issues. So thank you, Dennis, for being awesome. All right, we'll see you next week. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Hal, you're the man. Thanks a lot, bud.
Oh, absolutely, brother. Thank you so much. And like I said, if there's ever those blank outs when we're doing it this way, more than likely, if you jabber for 12 seconds, I'll be back. It'll work. Cool. Thanks.
Immediately clear why the imbalance in numbers. The peace agreement that has been shaky in Ukraine had called for an all-for-all exchange, but this may simply be the first step in fulfilling the all-for-all requirement.
Ukraine's military and the Russia-backed separatist rebels accuse each other of continuing to mount attacks a week after a ceasefire was called. Defense Secretary Ash Carter is in Afghanistan, and he says U.S. troops may stay there a little longer.
President Obama is considering a number of options to reinforce our support for President Ghani's security strategy, including possible changes to the timeline for our drawdown of U.S. troops.
Afghanistan's president would like to see a slowdown in President Obama's plan to cut troop levels in half by the end of this year and remove nearly all in 2016. A snowstorm is moving in from New England all the way to the south. In Virginia, Don Eishen with Emergency Management says roads are very slippery.
The temperatures have been very frigid, and when they're under 20 degrees, it's difficult to pre-treat roads. So they're doing the best they can despite the frigid temperatures.
In Tennessee, it's raining and melting the snow. There is a threat of flash flooding. The first nationwide oil refinery strike in more than 30 years is expected to grow by 4 more plants over the weekend, including the largest refinery in the country, the Motiva Enterprises refinery in Port Arthur, Texas. The Steelworkers Union says the industry has refused to meaningfully address safety issues. 2 astronauts are acting as cable guys today. They're doing a spacewalk outside the International Space Station.
I'm hanging
up. This is AP Radio News.
Cool. Thank you guys so much. I got to run today as well. So thanks everybody in the chat room. You guys were great. And we will see you next time. Obama Mama and EO and Tom and Fessor Fink and Amir Terry. Thank you guys so much for getting in there with us. Skinny D4 and Presnett and King David Lane. By the way, always funny with the Twitter. I don't think it goes unnoticed. And let's see, who else am I missing? Paul Brown. I don't know if we lost you earlier on and you had to go, but there you are. I appreciate you guys all joining us. Amazing good time. So thanks again, and we will see you guys real soon. And I think we're getting close to actually solving a good portion of these tech issues that we have. So Dennis is working so hard to make sure that we don't have to deal with this stuff, and I appreciate your patience. And we'll see you next Saturday, and before then too, and that kind of stuff. Plus, I'm looking again for more ideas for my Everybody's Wrong But Me show. So if there's a topic you think I should tackle, you can tweet it to me at Hal Sparks. So okay, I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye.